Hey everyone, welcome back to Mindset Thinking Outside the Box. We're your hosts, Jilly and Willie,
And Eileen Edwards.
and today we are talking about manifestation.
Mm, have a definition for us for manifestation. One definition. Manifestation is the theory that though through regular meditation and positive constructive thought, you can make your dreams and desire become reality. Manifestation holds that if you really want something and truly believe it's possible, it will happen.
Oh my gosh, I love manifestation. This is such a fun topic. Last week we talked about goals. So hopefully you've had some time over the past week to start thinking about what do you really want. And now we're going to talk about the manifestation process, which is a way to achieve those goals. So fun.
So, why don't we get started with the first step to manifestation, which would be to ask.
So before you can manifest, you need to put out there what you want. You need to figure out what is my goal? What am I after? So asking is putting your intentions out there to the universe or source or all that is God, whatever you believe in, and saying, this is what I want, and putting it out there.
Yeah, and making sure that when you're putting it out there, that you're clear in what it is that you want. And something that we've talked about is it doesn't necessarily mean that you're asking a question, but it could be something that you're thinking about and you're clear on what your intent is and what you want.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good.
So we have step two, which would be to believe.
Mhm. Can I real quick go back to ask for a minute? I just want to
Sure.
add something. Um, that asking can include like vision boards too. So we're actually going to be hosting a vision board party next month in June. And creating a vision board is a really cool way to start thinking about what do I want and what do I want to manifest, because it's there in front of you. And we'll talk a little bit later about like visualization and the importance of that. But just something, a fun way to put out there what you want.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's good timing because we're going to be doing that in our Facebook group.
mhm.
So step two is to believe, my favorite.
Oh, yes, I love this too. So, believing is having that faith that what you want is going to come. So, you believe in it. You believe that you are worthy. You believe that you deserve whatever it is that you want. And you start getting rid of those limiting beliefs and those negative thoughts centered around whatever it is that you want.
Yeah, and I like to tell my kids that you want to eliminate all the doubt. So if you truly believe something, then you have to really positively believe it um, in order to manifest it.
Yeah, that is so important. I think a lot of people, they want something big, that C-type goal, but then they don't have that belief that it's actually possible from
Exactly.
whatever stories or paradigms that we have, the conditioning that we have. And I see this a lot too, even in my family, talking to my husband. I'll tell him like I'm manifesting this, and he's like, but that's not possible. Like, but it is. Anything is possible. So it just goes back to our conditioning.
Yeah, I think a lot of our conditioning, just humans in general, is just that hesitation. And that hesitation will interfere. And so it's very important that our own beliefs, kind of aren't limiting and that they come through in order to manifest.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Step three is to trust.
This is a good one too. These are all really good. They're so
Yeah.
important. But trusting, believe and trust, I mean, they do go hand in hand. It's having that faith that it's going to happen. But also, and part of this is taking inspired action. So when you are manifesting something, when you get started, you're not supposed to know how to get there. And I think a lot of people get hung up on that too, on the how. But when you start manifesting, you're not going to know how it's possible or how you're going to get there. That's part of the fun. But when you believe in it and you put yourself in that end result and you visualize yourself living in that end, in that, place with all your goals achieved, then things start coming to you. The universe will start giving you what you need. And that can take shape of inspired action. You might have a thought, an intuitive hit. There might be knowledge that you need that comes to you through, maybe you read a book or come across an article or a video. People, there might be people that you need to meet along the way that will help you in some way, and they'll come into your life. There are so many different ways, but the universe will help you. So just trusting it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think a couple of things that came up for me while you were talking was like that taking action part. It's not that I don't think of that as like a planning process. You're not planning how you're going to take action. It's almost like you're helping the universe make it happen by, observing and watching and seeing what things kind of come your way. And then the other thing was that acknowledgement. Things will be sent to you along the way, and then acknowledging those things when they happen.
Mhm. Yeah, that is so important. I think too, a lot of people, they'll get an idea, maybe an intuitive hit, and then they're afraid and they back off and they don't follow it.
Hmm.
But then you're telling the universe that you're not ready for whatever it is that you want. So pushing past that, which sometimes it can be scary because
Yes.
you are, after all, growing. That is the purpose of a goal, is to grow. So it might be a little scary, it might be a little uncomfortable, but that's part of the process. So pushing through that.
Yeah, and I think we can also use our gratitude practice here. So, not just acknowledging those things that come our way along the way to manifestation, but then being grateful for the little things and the big things that'll come.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, the next step is to let go.
Yes. This again goes with letting go of the how, but and it goes back to believing. I mean, it all kind of goes
Yep.
together here, but just being grateful, like you were just saying, being grateful for what you have now, living in the moment, accepting what comes, because there might be little setbacks along the way. There might be things that pop up that are, you know, there for testing purposes. Something's going to happen that's going to say, "Oh, wait, if I just look at my physical world around me, I would think that no, it's not going to happen." But if you keep believing and you trust, you have faith, it's going to happen, you will push past that, and then you'll continue along the path toward getting what it is that you want.
Yeah. And when I think of letting go, I think of dropping like expectations. I think of like the word like striving. It's like you're not doing that. Because that all fits into that like planning piece. And it's like it's not about that. It's about letting go and believing and trusting that it'll come. And so you can let it go. You can drop it. And then it's like if you truly believe and trust that it'll come, then you can, go on with your life, the situation that you have at this moment. And then it'll come.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep, I agree with that completely. And one of the ways I like to think about this is when you manifest, it's like ordering from Amazon. So I call it Universe Prime. So when you place an order on Amazon, barring, the exception where your package doesn't show up, and I mean, it happens time to time, but typically you place your order on Amazon and you know it's going to come. You trust it's going to come. You're not sitting there waiting for it to come. You don't constantly open the door and look outside to see if your package has arrived. You don't call them and say, "Hey, where's my package? When's it going to get here?" You just know it's going to come. You let it go. You placed your order, you asked for what you wanted, you let it go, and then it arrives. So manifesting is the same thing. You're ordering from the universe, what do you want? And then you let it go, you know it's going to happen, and, then it'll show up. And what what we want is already here. So everything that we want already exists. Nothing is created or destroyed. It exists somewhere. You just have to pull it to you. You have to um, become a vibrational match for whatever
Yes,
you want.
I was just gonna say that.
We're
Yeah.
so in alignment. Go ahead, did you wanna
I was
elaborate?
just saying, like, I was thinking in my mind as you're talking that, like, we have to, raise our vibration, and that's a way to, bring that attraction, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I find for myself, there are things that I manifest really quickly, and those are the things that I am a vibrational match with right now. If there's something that you could expect in your life and you just know, "Yes, this would happen, this would fit into my life," then you're a vibrational match. So, for example, I lost my son's jacket. So he has this jacket, the spring jacket that I couldn't find for like months. Like I would find it and then I would lose it. And I was constantly telling myself, "Oh, I can never find his red jacket." And I wanted to send it to school and then with him one day. And I realized, oh my gosh, I keep saying I can never find it. So of course I'm manifesting never being able to hold on to it. So I just said, you know what? I found his jacket. And I took like 5 seconds to just visualize myself putting his jacket into his school bag that night. It was a Sunday. I wanted him to have it for Monday. So, and then I went about my day. And this is something that matches with my life. I expect it to happen, right? So then later that day, I was kind of tidying up and there was a bag of some things that I had bought at the store like a month ago that I just hadn't had time to put away. And it was sitting on the stairs, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go put this stuff away finally. So that was my intuitive hit. That was the idea I had. And when I took it upstairs, what did I find in the bag? But his red jacket. And it's those simple things, and our viewers can probably find times where things like that may have happened to you, you as well. But it's like because I was in vibration with that, it just happened.
Yep. Mhm. We had a similar experience here yesterday at my
You want
house.
to
So,
share?
sure. So my son had lost his necklace, um, and he was really upset, and he, tearing the place apart looking for it. Can't remember the last place he saw it. Knew he had it that morning, but then didn't remember putting it anywhere or leaving it anywhere, seeing it somewhere, and it was this um, whole lot of suffering going on. And
Oh,
I kept saying, like, just drop it, let it go, you know, believe that you you'll have it, trust that it will present itself, and then just let it go. Um, if you're striving for and planning on finding it and you can't do anything until you find it, I said, that struggle, you're just attracting more and more of that, struggle. I said, so you got to just let it go. And he was probably at it for close to an hour, and I just couldn't convince him. And eventually he, you know, gave in, and went about with the rest of his day. Um, and I just kept kind of thinking, it'll appear. We have to trust that it will, because it will, like, it'll be here. And I sat down on my chair and I put my hand down on my chair, and there it's sitting right on my chair. I was like, here it is. He's like, well, why would it be sitting there? Don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah, it's
yeah.
so fun.
And I find that that kind of stuff happens a lot with my memory. So like you ever feel like you've were doing something but you forgot what you were doing? Get that feeling? So
Yeah.
that used to happen to me a lot. And I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like I don't have any idea why I came into this room." And I try and like backtrack like through my thoughts and like what was I doing? And this whole strenuous process. Um and then in some of my teaching, some of the things that I've been studying over the last couple of years, one thing that was mentioned was that idea of, you're not going to be able to find something, um, a thought or whatever, when you're not still. Like when it's almost like you're grasping for straws, like that's not how it's gonna, come to you. And so whatever book I was reading had said, when that happens, just let it go. Just drop it. Um, and then the silence, the stillness that comes from letting it go, the answer will have room. Like it'll have room to just appear. And so anytime that I'm going through that now, doesn't matter what it is, I forget somebody's name, forget why I came into the room. Um, doesn't matter. Whatever it is, I always immediately drop it. Like I immediately let it go. And I'm thinking, you know what? If I meant to know this, if I meant to remember this, it'll come to me. Like it'll just present itself. And so it always does. And so you just let it go. And then it's like, oh, yeah, that's right. Um, but if I'm sitting there trying to remember it, all that like mental activity that goes with that, like, oh, it's like I'm making my brain too loud for the universe to even, throw me a bone. So I just let it go. I'm like, you know what? If I'm meant to do it, or if I'm meant to remember it, then it'll come. And if it wasn't meant to be, then letting go of it's going to do no harm. Um,
Mhm.
just being still.
Oh, wow. I've never heard that, but it makes so much sense, and I'm going to adopt that for myself because that happens to me, and it's so frustrating in the moment, but that makes absolute sense. Oh, well, thank you for that.
You are welcome.
So good.
Same thing like
And
with creativity. I don't consider myself creative at all, but like the same thing with creativity. If you're trying to like create something, the best thing to do is to bring stillness and silence, like just be, um, being, not doing, that sense of just being, and being still and being quiet. Um, it's like the universe will offer, things to you that
Mhm.
you can't get when you're in that doing state. Just interferes.
That makes so much sense. That happens to me a lot. I have found when I'm trying too hard to come up with something creative or a new idea, it's like you're almost resistant because you're just trying so hard and you want it so bad. But then when you just stop and just be and
And
just let things come.
I like that you brought up the word resistance, because I know step 4 was, letting it go. But what I in when we're talking about letting go, I think eliminating all resistance, because
Mhm.
resistance comes in a lot of forms and you really have to just drop them all. um, because some things that are resistance don't seem like they're negative. Striving and trying, like you said, like it's not, it doesn't seem like it's a negative thing. It's positive, but it is resistance. It's not allowing what's meant to be. Um, and so letting it go is that also.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great point. I think, and I hadn't even thought about it that way, that resistance isn't always negative. It just is a block to the flow.
Yes.
And a good analogy to think about it is like if you have a hose, when it's straight or flat or, nothing's impeding on it, water flows through it, so that's, like energy. And then when there's a kink in it, the water stops. And then there's resistance and it can't, the water can't get through. So when we have any kind of resistance, it's like that kink, and then the energy can't flow freely anymore.
Hmm.
So taking the path of least resistance is the best way to go in those situations. And when you're trying too hard, just being still is the path of least resistance. Just let it go.
Hmm. Absolutely. And that's why I've found that mindfulness and meditation has really allowed a lot of these things um, to occur, to be, because there is more silence and more stillness and more being, more presence in my life, and less doing and less planning and less driving and all of that. And so I think that those things have helped me to make that happen.
Hmm. Yeah. I think so many times people are very focused on just going in the next thing.
Yep.
So we don't stop to really take in what we have now. And that goes back to gratitude and being grateful for what we have and in the moment. But it creates that blockage. And then you kind of get stuck.
Yeah.
That'll make sense. I'm putting together some pieces right now that, like having one of those kind of aha moments. That's cool.
And step 5 is the actual step of receiving. And
Mhm.
so um, you get all 4 of those things in place, and then you do receive.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's beautiful when that manifestation finally comes. And something I think that's an important piece of manifesting is before you receive. So when you go back to the first step and you ask, that is the moment of receiving. People get stuck in, well, it's not really here, so how am I receiving it? But when you ask, going back to that belief, knowing it's going to come, you have to, well, you don't have to, but it will certainly help. If you write that in there, you set your goal, this is what I want, and you start living in your end result. So you live your life as if you have it already, because that's going to bring you to the vibration of what you already have. And I recommend celebrate. So if you're manifesting, I got a new job, then celebrate getting that job. That's going to help bring it to you. If you're celebrating, you're living your life that way as if you have it already, then it's something that you would expect. It's something that fits right into your life perfectly. So, that's one of the biggest tips that I've learned personally is just living in your end result. So what would that, think about what would you think if you had what you want? How would you act? How would you show up? How would you behave? What language would you use? Like really putting yourself there and becoming that person then.
And I think we must have talked about this a little bit last time,
Mhm.
because I remember having a conversation about, celebrating. Yes, it was our goals conversation last week. So we had that conversation about being celebrating, not being, sorry, celebrating those C goals or even A and B goals if we're working up to C goals, but celebrating them before, you've had a chance to even, get to it. And last week, I was working with a student, and she's been working on increasing her, reading skills all year. And we were doing an assessment, and I said, let's try something. She did what it's like a three-part assessment. It's like the same thing. You probably know what I'm talking about, but it's the same process, but it's like three times. So she already did like the first go through. And I said, let's try something. So we had a conversation about mindset, about really what would it be that she would do had she been able to reach her goal. We didn't even know if she had yet on the first round because we hadn't, worked out the numbers yet, but and so we had a conversation. We had a conversation about how she would feel, what would she do, would she tell? And we went through this whole like spiel. And then she went and she took part two and part three. Um, and then after she was like, well, can you tell me what, the numbers turned out to be? Um, and originally I said, well, why don't you come back? Because she's virtual. Why don't you come back and we'll have a conversation about it? Because I knew it was going to take me a while to like tally everything. And she said, no, I'll just sit here. I'll just wait. I said, okay. So she sat
Oh,
there. And when the results came, there was a huge difference between part one and part two. Huge difference. A difference of being not meeting the goal and meeting, or in some cases, surpassing the goal. And so we just talked about that like last week, and I was like, well, why don't we give it a try? Um, and so I think it's important.
oh my gosh, I love that. Like, I just, it's just so cool. It always blows my mind. Like every time I hear, I've done it before. I know all of this, but it's just so fun to actually, to hear examples. I never get tired of hearing examples. But I love that you gave an example of in the classroom how it can be used or how it can be used with kids, who we talked last time, it might be more of a stretch for them to come up with C-type goals, or their C-type goals might look and feel a little different than what we as adults would look at as a C-type goal. So that kind of practical way of how to bring it to kids, I I think is wonderful. And that goes to show too how quickly it can happen if you're in alignment, because that was in a matter of minutes that she
Oh,
was able
absolutely.
to.
Absolutely. And then afterwards I was like, okay, went through the numbers, and she was like, oh, wow. Yeah, I am proud of myself. I am going to tell so and so and so and so. And um but I think that that's the kind of thing that, like I say, I want to start off with next school year, of
Mm,
being able to make these actions and these activities and these conversations just part of our process, just what we
mhm.
do. Um, can you imagine the difference? Um,
I was about to say,
Wild.
yeah, like it'll be night and day. Like this comparing, previous classes to a class of kids that has this material and they're living in it, obviously, probably when they're at school more so than at home, but if they are living it at school, hopefully it will transfer to their home life.
Yeah. And
But
something else that's come up to me in the last few days, I'm going to school to be a mindfulness and meditation teacher. And one of my textbooks I was reading a couple days ago, and it was talking about the placebo effect, which most people are familiar with that term, but don't necessarily fully understand um, the importance of it and true meaning of it. So, one of the researchers was explaining how the placebo effect actually, not only is it controlled by our beliefs, like what we believe is possible. Um, but it's also controlled by the belief of like the other that's involved. So, for the example where people know that term from is the medical field, like medications and surgeries and all of these things. So, they're saying that, like, not only is it the beliefs of the patient, but it's what the physician believes about whatever that is that they are doing also. Like, both of those minds have control over it. And so that's another thing that I was like, wow, like me believing in her ability to do that, her celebrating doing it before actually doing it. Um, all of that is just so powerful.
Mhm. Yeah, sometimes your belief in somebody else is enough for them to believe, even if they don't believe in themselves, your belief in them is
Mm,
enough to get them going.
yep, absolutely.
And that's actually really quiet. I hadn't thought of it, with the placebo effect that it is what you expect. Like that just puts a whole new perspective into like studies and
Oh yeah.
trials and oh my goodness.
There's a lot of research in, because I've been researching like quantum physics over the last like year and a half, and there's a lot out there about the placebo effect and the opposite, the nocebo effect, where, when you think something's not possible, your beliefs, that strong, that mind energy actually makes it not so. And they have scientific evidence of this, of our consciousness actually playing a part, a huge part in this. And so, yeah, that goes into all kinds of things about medications and different methods of healing, and um, it's really interesting. It really is very interesting.
I mean, it's so good. It's so good. So I think in the future that could be something we chat about of an
Yeah.
episode or maybe multiple. That would be cool. But I think we've gone through manifestation just kind of to sum up, because I know we kind of, got off there a little bit. So you want to ask and be so super clear and specific. Just real quick, something to kind of go off on that to give you an example of being specific. Um, I have a friend who was manifesting money and she wanted $5,000. And she wasn't very clear. She just said, I want $5,000. And she got in a car accident and everyone was fine. But through her insurance, she got a check for $5,000. So while she got what she asked for, she would have rather her car not have damage to it. So just being really clear in what you want, maybe and I like to say I am so happy and grateful now that, because that's putting that gratitude, like being grateful for not only what we have right now, but being grateful for what you're manifesting. So that goes back to like living in the end result. So I like to say, I am so happy and grateful now that, so maybe I am so happy and grateful now that I have $5,000 and it came to me in a way that is best for everyone. Just being really clear, because the universe will find a way to get you what you want. So the more clear, the better. So we ask, we believe, we trust, we let go, and we receive. So we will put a checklist into our Facebook group resources so that anyone who is part of our group can have that as a resource. If you are not currently part of our group, we'd love to have you. It is called Mindset Teaching Outside the Box. So come on over. We have a lot of good resources. We have a great community. We are, as we mentioned, we're hosting our first event June 11th, 12th, and 13th. We're having a vision board party, so it is the perfect time to come on over. We're going to really dive deep into goal setting, help you make a beautiful vision board that will inspire you so that you can start manifesting the life of your dreams.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.